Well, good morning, everyone, and welcome to the Glenview New Church today for our 4th of July celebration. We have a very simple program today. We have a guest speaker, Gary Edmonds, and without wanting to draw a whole lot of attention to himself, the two of us have agreed that we'll simply say that Gary has been a lifelong resident in Glenview, specifically in the park of Glenview, and he has been a lifelong member of the Glenview New Church. I hope you'll welcome Gary Edmonds.
Good morning. I'd like to begin this morning with a Pledge of Allegiance. If you join me, please stand. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which he stands, one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you. I have simply a few moments to reflect on where we've come since the origin of the United States was begun by a bunch of very, very intelligent individuals who gathered in Philadelphia in 1776 to write a Declaration of Independence, a declaration that the 13 colonies would become a new nation independent of, at that time, England. This occurred in 1776. The Declaration was signed and released. A war followed between those small, inept colonies and the greatest military nation in the world, both on land and sea. The Constitution, which we all know well of, or some about of it, was written or begun to be written in 1787 after the war was done. It was finished. General George Washington had won the fight with a small band of soldiers at that time. By the signing of the Constitution in 1791 by Vermont, which at that time was still its own independent nation, the work had begun to form a full union of nations under the Constitution of the United States. I'd like to go a little further past that point in history and begin by saying that we presently reflect on what's going on in the United States and the world is unprecedented. And I don't believe for a moment that this is either unprecedented or that it is never going to find a solution. If we go back in history, we see the Civil War, we see World War I, we see the Second World War, we see the war in Vietnam, Korea, the Middle East, we see the cataclysmic attack of 2001, and we all believed at that time that we were in for something that we could not solve. The framers of the Constitution have found a set of laws, rules, and methods by which they can rule a country such as I shouldn't say rule, but manage a country like the United States. As we go back, not that many changes or additions have been made, but primarily the first few that assure this freedom of speech, the freedom of religion, the freedom to gather, and so forth. And those have served us well over 200 years, which makes the United States actually one of the older countries in this world in comparison to the length of time that many others have been in existence. This leads to a lot of problem solving, and I think quite simply that given the opportunity that was given to us or written for us by the founders, the framers of the Constitution, we've taken that outline and taken it forward to the point where we are able to solve problems and we are able to surmount challenges. We have always done this. We've had a lot of help from other countries, and in the present state of mind, we are all working with countries from around the world to solve another pandemic. It's worth noting as well that in the Spanish flu pandemic of 1918, a total of between 50 and 100 million people died worldwide, which is an exponential number larger than who have passed from the COVID-19. It's also worth noting that after the First World War concluded, while the pandemic was on the downside, more people got out in the streets to celebrate the end of the First World War, leading to a relapse in that virus that brought more deaths than it had to up to that point. So the idea here is that with the freedoms allowed to us in the United States, we are free to believe that we can do what we want, we can go where we wish, we can act as if nobody's going to stop us, and this, of course, is a basis for the foundation of the United States so many years ago. But I would remind you that also being free, it really revolves around the common sense attitude of the individual. We may point fingers and we may disagree loudly with opposition, regardless of which side you're on. The freedom of the individual is the basic need and right that the Lord gave us in order to make good decisions, do the right thing, and to express our freedom without harming or injuring others, to be taken very seriously for the preservation of what the United States has become. I would urge everybody to take that idea, move forward, treat each other properly. Don't do anything that hurts anyone. Express your freedoms without impinging on others' freedoms, and treat everybody equally as a human being. It's not a great challenge. In those secrets of freedom, we find the solutions to problems. I don't want to ever hear the word, this is a absolutely impossible mission, that this whole idea of a pandemic is some sort of unprecedented action. We've met and solved unprecedented actions throughout the ages, as far as 200 and some odd years goes back. It's our strength. It's the way we do what we do. And we should continue to do that, provided that we don't forget that we are free to do what we wish, and that we do it without harming others, while expressing all the joys and happiness of freedom. The good Lord above gave us that ability to be free. We should practice it. We should celebrate it, which we're hoping to do to a certain degree today. But do not for the moment think that anybody else should take away your freedoms. As long as you're not hurting anybody else, be free, dance in the streets, sing loudly, and get haircuts. Until then, thank you. It's very, very kind of you to join us this morning.
Well, thank you so much, Gary, for coming in and offering us an address in a very unusual time in our history. I love the thought that you shared about the freedoms that we enjoy and at the very same time not doing harm to one another. I meant to say at the beginning this morning that we are in our auditorium, where some of you may have been expecting us to be outside in the front steps, and we had a flagpole ceremony ready to go. And unfortunately, when we tested the system this morning, we found that the Wi-Fi was not connecting out there, so we had to move it all indoors. Glad you could join us today, and I hope that you all have a wonderful 4th of July weekend, celebrating it in whatever way that you and your loved ones can do that. Take care, everyone.